All right, let's jump right into this. Today, we're looking at an ancient text that honestly reads a lot less like a traditional historical log and way more like a high-stakes espionage thriller. We're talking betrayal, survival, and a definitive royal cat and mouse chase between King Saul and David. We're going to rely entirely on the source material to trace the tactics, the intense intelligence gathering, and those literal life and death margins that defined this whole pursuit. To really grasp the gravity of this, we've got to establish the sheer, terrifying stakes of David's situation right from the jump. Picture this. He's leading a rogue band of just about 600 men. They're completely boxed in. You've got hostile foreign enemies on one side, and they're being relentlessly hunted by their own sovereign monarch on the other. Every single move is life or death. There is absolutely zero safety net here. Okay, let's dive into Act 1, Saving the City of Keilah. So our timeline kicks off with a massive, volatile crisis. David gets some sudden intelligence about the city of Keilah. The text tells us the Philistines are violently assaulting the city. But it's not just a military siege, right? It's total economic devastation. They are actively robbing the threshing floors. And in the ancient world, stealing a city's grain right at the threshing floor, that means starving its people. It is a calculated, brutal attack on their most vital resources. Now watch David's structured protocol here. He doesn't just react blindly. First, he hears the threat. Second, he inquires of the Lord to gather critical intel, asking straight up, shall I go and smite these Philistines? The answer is yes. But look at the third phase. His men are absolutely terrified. They say, look, we're already afraid here in Judah. How much worse is it going to be if we march to Keilah against the actual armies of the Philistines? So, to overcome that hesitation, David inquires yet again. And only after getting a second confirmation that the Philistines will be delivered into his hand do they move to step 4, the attack. So armed with that verified intelligence, David and his band of roughly 600 men launch their offensive. And it's incredibly effective. They head down to Keilah, fight the Philistines, smite them with a, quote, great slaughter, and even bring away their cattle. Against all odds, this rogue unit actually saves the inhabitants of Keilah. Which brings us to Act 2, Betrayed by the Rescued. You know, in a landscape of shifting loyalties, no good deed goes unpunished. And this brilliantly illustrates the vast difference in priorities between our two main guys. David is out here using his incredibly limited resources to fight foreign invaders and save an entire city. On the flip side, when King Saul is told David is in Keilah, he doesn't celebrate the city being saved. Instead, he says, God hath delivered him into mine hand, for he is shut in. Saul immediately mobilizes his entire army to go down and besiege Keilah, all just to hunt down a single rival. But David is highly perceptive. The text says he knew Saul secretly practiced mischief against him. So to counter this, he turns to Abiathar the priest, who had actually fled to David carrying a very specific item, an ephod. David uses this ephod essentially as a direct, secure line of communication to inquire of the Lord. He's looking for definitive intelligence on enemy movements and Saul's true intentions. Through that ephod, David confirms that Saul is, in fact, coming to destroy the city just to get to him. And this leads to one of the most tense, dramatic questions in the whole text. I mean, put yourself in David's shoes for a second. You just risk your life and the lives of your men to save this city from starvation. Now the king's army is marching straight toward you. So David asks the ultimate question of loyalty. Will the men of Keilah deliver me and my men into the hand of Saul? The intelligence he gets back from the Lord is blunt and, honestly, absolutely devastating. Just 5 words. They will deliver thee up. Despite his heroic rescue, the citizens of Keilah are going to betray him to save themselves from Saul's wrath. It is a chilling moment where harsh political reality completely overrides gratitude. Let's move into Act 3, a secret alliance in Ziph. With that brutal confirmation of betrayal, David and his men get out of Keilah immediately, going whithersoever they could go. When Saul hears David escaped, he calls off the siege. So now David is forced into hiding in the strongholds of the wilderness of Ziph. But here, a fascinating counter-movement happens. While David is hiding in the woods, a clandestine meeting takes place. King Saul's own son, Jonathan, seeks David out. Jonathan actively strengthens David's hand in God and makes this incredible pledge. He tells him not to fear, guarantees that Saul won't find him, and then Jonathan outright predicts that David will be king over Israel. He even pledges to be a second in command. They make a secret covenant before the Lord right there in the woods before going their separate ways. But the wilderness of Ziph doesn't stay safe for long. The local Ziphites travel to Saul at Gibeah and offer to hand David over. And Saul's response? He says, "Blessed be ye of the Lord, for ye have compassion on me." The irony here is just wild. Saul is literally blessing informants in the name of the Lord for offering to help him hunt down an innocent man, claiming that they are the ones showing him compassion. Now, Saul doesn't just blindly march out this time. He issues some incredibly specific counter-espionage orders. He demands the Ziphites prepare, investigate, and come back with absolute certainty. He tells them to know and see his place, where his haunt is, to find out who has actually seen him there, and to thoroughly document all his hiding spots. Why? Because Saul admits a crucial piece of intel. It is told me that he dealeth very subtly. Saul knows exactly how evasive David can be, which sets the stage for Act 4, the narrow mountainous gate. This new intelligence gathered by the Ziphites forces David into an even more desperate retreat further south. You can really feel the sheer exhaustion of this flight when you look at the timeline. We started with the intense battle at Keilah, then the text says Saul sought him every day in the wilderness of Ziph. Now betrayed yet again, David retreats to the wilderness of Ma'on. It's this escalating, desperate run where the walls are just constantly closing in on him. And this brings us to the ultimate climax of the chase. Saul and his massive army pursue David right into the wilderness of Maon. The text paints a terrifying picture. Saul is going on one side of the mountain, and David and his men are on the other side. David is making desperate haste to get away because Saul's men have completely encompassed them roundabout. They are totally surrounded, out of running room. At this point, they are separated by just a single sliver of geographical rock. And then, literally, at the very second of inevitable capture, the narrative gives us a moment of pure historical whiplash. A messenger suddenly bursts into Saul's camp with a frantic report. "Haste thee, and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land." The exact same enemies David was fighting at the very beginning of this story have returned, and they just forced King Saul into an impossible choice. Saul has to abandon the chase instantly to protect his kingdom. He abruptly returns from pursuing David to go deal with the Philistines. Because of this unbelievably timed interruption, that specific geographical spot was named Selah HaMelahoth, which roughly translates to the Rock of Escape or the Rock of Divisions. The snare is broken, and David escapes safely to the strongholds at En-Gedi. So from saving a starving city only to be betrayed by it, to secret woodland alliances, to being completely surrounded on a mountain, this whole account is just a masterclass in strategy, evasion, and timing. It leaves us with a really compelling final thought. How often does survival, and even effective leadership, hinge not just on raw military might, but on having the right intelligence and making the exact right move at the exact right moment? Thanks for exploring this explainer with me, and I hope it keeps you questioning how the flow of information shapes the histories we study today.